Hey, everybody, welcome back. My name is Deborah Peters, and you've just tuned in to the Deborah Peters Show. We go live every Tuesday at 12 noon Pacific and 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's absolutely a pleasure to have you here. I really appreciate all of the subscribers and the likes and the shares. Really enjoy having you be a part of this broadcast. We aim to unpack the concept of consciousness and how consciousness serves you in your life and is a constant, ever expanding way of being in the world, whether it's your business, your money, your relationships, your self-expression, all of it, whether you're doing sales or tech or a stay-home mom with your kids, everything is consciousness. And the more you can up-level that, the better your life will become, the more joy, the more happiness, and definitely the more fulfillment and self-expression. So really happy to have you here with me today. Those subscriptions that you do when you hit that subscribe bell gets this channel moving forward. And jump on over to my shorts. I'm doing shorts on a regular basis now and getting some tools up there for you guys. So definitely jump on over there, and thank you so much for being a part of our community. And with that said, today is all about the soul, not just the soul, but your soul. And it's fascinating to me, even having this dialogue with my guest when we did the pre-interview, because it's just so refreshing to meet someone that is on the same path and really understands how our soul is such a pivotal part of our existence. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome Allyn Reid to the show. And today's topic is your soul has an operating system. That's a whopper.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm very glad to be here.
I'm happy to have you. You know, it's so good that as I say the consciousness of humanity continues to raise and people's self-awareness continues to increase, that we can actually have a conversation like this.
And it's necessary. It's getting to a point where it's very necessary. Otherwise, touching anything around consciousness or becoming more self-aware feels overwhelming.
Yes. Yes. You know,
And
I
it
saw
feels
this meme.
overwhelming. And it's
Well,
okay.
and it can be, right? I mean, I saw this meme the other day of this person sitting in a lotus position, and the top of the meme said, "What everyone thinks a spiritual awakening looks like." And then the second half of the meme is this woman lying in her bed, like hair crazy and all freaked out and like screaming out loud. You know, it's like, yeah, I totally get that second part.
Yes, I think we all live through that second part.
Oh my gosh.
There's a
Well,
saying, before enlightenment, you chop wood and carry water. And
yeah,
afterwards, you chop wood and you carry water.
I know. It's so funny. I think there was a period of time in my life when I first got on this journey of mine. Um, of just I was thinking of it today when I was driving to a meeting. I think I started really waking up when I was in my like mid-20s. And it's interesting because I was revisiting everything I already knew as a toddler. Like I was wide awake as a kid and then just, went to sleep. And I was thinking about today how that really has been like such a solid journey. And back then, though, I would think, I'm going to have this, my life is going to look different. I'm going to live differently. And yes, of course you do to a certain extent, but you're still chopping wood and carrying water, whether you like it or not, right?
It's so very true. We're all born awake.
Yeah.
And by the time we get out of school, we're all asleep.
Thank you for saying that. I feel like, I didn't do well with school. And back then it was a point of judgment. There was something wrong with you if you didn't do well with school. But I look at it now as like almost like dodging a bullet because I didn't get indoctrinated as deeply.
Yeah, and school, it doesn't really matter. It's about it's about cultivating your mind and none about
Mhm.
cultivating your soul. And so we all missed a bunch of classes, in kindergarten, uh, which is how to be a human. Because to acknowledge that first we are a soul. We got the song, head, shoulders, knees and toes, knees and toes. And it should have been soul, head, shoulders, knees and toes, knees and toes.
Yeah.
So at the very beginning, we already got skipped over such a essential part of our existence, the root of our existence. And so we get into adulthood and we try through our work or through our family dynamics and relationships to disentangle that thing or find
Yes.
that thing that's missing. And it's actually key to being able to handle consciousness is to have a grasp that we are all soul first. You were a soul
Mhm.
first before I was a soul first. All our children were souls first before we inhabited these bodies, these
Right.
skin bags. So, but we are missing a couple of skills that in a way we find them as we go through our lives. Some
Hopefully.
hopefully some
Yeah.
incomplete, some you kind of have to piece together. There's people who never find them. And frankly, the consciousness has moved that it's necessary. We have AI right now.
Yeah.
There's artificial intelligence, and humans will rightly feel that they're easily going to be disposable because we don't have a grasp of our own AI, our own actual
Exactly.
authentic intelligence. That's the real AI, us
That is
first.
the real AI.
And
You
the
know,
artificial is just a mimicry of that authentic intelligence.
exactly. Like when you consider the computer, it was designed after the unconscious mind. When you
Yeah.
consider the GPS system, it was designed after our instincts. And the calculator, the database with all your contacts in it. What's that old saying? If you don't use it, you lose it. And has been this progressive dumbing down of human beings using this internal wisdom that is innate within us, regardless how old we are. And we just put way too much emphasis on age, diplomas on the wall, these kinds of titles. They're overrated. I mean, I've coached some people in their 50s and 60s that have it all. Ferraris and Maybachs and several houses and private jets. Not to say that being wealthy is an issue. That's not what I'm trying to say. All I'm saying is that they've mastered an external side of themselves. And some of them are in touch with their soul, and that's how they did it. And some of them, they just are so caught up. So I think it's really about not making anything wrong. Like it's not the wrongness, it's the journey. Everything's this unpacking of who we are.
I am all about not making anything wrong. We all chose to be here. And so to
Mm.
make materialism wrong or some sort of taboo, frankly, I was not willing to do this work of uh, connecting people to their soul in its anatomy and its entire metaphysiology. I was not willing to do it because I was successful and young and hot and arrogant. And frankly, I just wanted that to keep going and live a normal life. But
Sure.
it was very clear that I was meant to do this work. And my conditions with God and the universe was like, listen, I really do not like the smell of patchouli. I don't want to live under a tree. I don't want to be poor. I love driving my dream car. I love having an ocean view home. I will do this only if I don't have to be a sacrifice for
Well, and you don't.
materialism. And I don't. I don't.
I
And
think
I feel
that's where the
and
whole New Age movement got so sideways. I remember
yes.
I was living in Vancouver, and it was like the pendulum swung hard. I came from one world of everything was an external accomplishment that you were measured by, to a whole other world, and tapped into this spiritual community where no one had anything. And to me, it just seemed crazy. Like, why do you have to be broke and like to your point, smelling like patchouli, and not being able to be in an abundant lifestyle just to be spiritual. Like that to me never made sense. And it was really, truly, it was a false premise.
It really is. The measure of spiritual success for me always has been, are they doing well in this earthly life? And is it that it's their soul and they are meant to be doing what they're doing?
Yeah.
Because, like you, I've coached many successful people who you see on TV coaching other people, very successful people. But I find that there is the bigger the success, the bigger the gap from their soul, their relationship with their soul.
Yeah, I think
And
it depends on who they've aligned with, because I know some really wealthy people, multimillionaires, billionaires, that are super aligned with their soul.
mhm,
But they've maintained a level of independence. They haven't
mhm,
um, they haven't sold their soul to a system. Be in the
correct.
world, but not of it.
Yeah, no, but indeed.
Yeah.
And that's the dance. That really is what you
Yes.
described is the dance, is that you can be aware of all these things without making any of it wrong, but understand how to live and play the game. That to me is
Yes.
the real game. How do you be the soul that is patched in to the divine abundance or the cosmic soup that knows all, that has the all,
Right. Yeah.
and also do well materially for what you want and have no judgments about it. It's doing what you're supposed to be doing while you're at
Yeah.
it. So,
Yeah. What you came to the planet to do with your life
mhm.
is your soul's calling. So tell us a little bit more about this operating system. I'm sure people are dying to find out what that is.
Yeah. So this operating system is made up of two major parts. If you can envision a circle, one
Hmm.
half of it is one we're highly educated about, half the circle. And that is the one that is not individuated. It's broad. That's what, that saying, we're all connected and we're all one. So there's a lot of education about that. And it tends to, because we're not anchored to the individuated side, the other side of the other makeup of the soul or operating system, people get lost in chasing being part of a oneness all day and every day.
Yeah.
And if you're not feeling like you're part of the oneness, you're doing something wrong. Well, the other part of the soul is made up of the individuated, tailored, customized version that expresses through your physical body, through the way
Mm.
your brain is wired, through the way your emotions come in. And so my part in the consciousness is one anchoring people with the soul, but not the part where it's like all oneness, because there's tons of, I mean, years and years and years in history of books that are still around that people can read about that, but more around how do you be still your individuated authentic self in and express that and still have access to the divine, have access to the all, and balance it with expressing what you're supposed to be doing, and then
Sure.
translating that to your version of success.
That's nice. That's nice because then it's not about fitting into anything.
No, oh no.
Quite the contrary, right?
If you feel like you're fitting in, you're in the race.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, over time, that was something I needed to learn because as a child, I learned really strongly how to be a pleaser, how to please the people in my family, how to please the people around me. I mean, I think part of that was part of the programming of the time where, as a child, you were supposed to be pleasant and quiet and happy and be willing to just placate the adults. Now the pendulum's gone the other way, but that's another conversation. And then also it was about making sure that nobody was offended and nobody's cage was rattled, and it was just kind of sugarcoating everything. So we'll get her back. I think she's probably trying to get her connection back. What's interesting is as I unlearned that, I actually taught myself how to find my soul. Like first I had to find that it existed. I mean, we hear the word soul, we talk about having a soul, but what does that really mean? And how do we communicate with that part of us? And how does that part of us, how do we allow it to direct our lives? That was my biggest turning point. And it didn't just happen all at once. It happened in stages, I guess I would say. It happened in stages over the course of years. And sometimes it came like baptism by fire, where I learned it out of survival, or I learned it out of pain and suffering. And sometimes, I learned it just because it made my life easier. So, there's different paths we can go down, but the bottom line is we have different drivers that drive our desire to know ourselves more. And this basically boils down to two drivers. So we have our toward driver, welcome back, where we're moving toward what it is that we desire to create. And then there's our away from drivers, where we're really struggling with some kind of emotional pain or trauma, and we don't want to ever feel that again. So that is the impetus for change. So while you were gone, I was just talking about, Allyn, my own journey of creating a friendship, relationship with my own soul, and allowing that to become the dominant operating system in my life instead of the world, whether it was family's opinions or colleagues' points of view or whatever it was, or the media, to determine and tell me what my life is supposed to look like in order to be successful. And
That is so beautiful.
yeah, it happened in stages. It's still happening. I'm still just like, it's just another layer of understanding, right?
And the impetus for change, what I caught you coming in, reminded me of something that people would ask me, when and how do you create this relationship? I'm like, well,
How fast?
one is like to not wait for a defining moment. Most of us, including me, have been propelled to do this work because some defining moment occurs in our life, right? Like I'm hard-headed. I've had a couple near deaths. It took me a minute to be like, oh, I'm supposed to figure this out. But to not wait for any of these defining moments, a life death situation, like a divorce or a loss, a major loss, but to just do it now, when be proactive when there isn't any craziness going on, because you could build trust easier, not one that's propelled by panic or fear
Yes.
or having to survive or emotion. So that's actually the easiest way to do it.
Absolutely. And it's a more comfortable journey. I found
Mhm.
that when I was doing it out of necessity or survival mode or desperation because nothing in my life was working, that's pain. Like that's painful. I can tell you for sure, 100%.
Me
However,
too.
yeah, like really painful. Um,
Yes.
but if you can do it out of a desire or a curiosity, like what else about me can I learn? It really is a journey of learning yourself. And it's profound, really. It's prolific when you choose that. And that's a choice.
Hmm. Because it is a going outside of conditioning. We tend to not
Mm,
take into action unless we're propelled or stimulated into action, right?
yeah.
And the choice here is that you just decide to, because you're thinking of it right now,
And
and
we
that's
get
as
those
good as time as
messages,
any.
don't we? Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting to me, I mean, I've been a human engineer all my life, and it's interesting to me now to see how everything I was saying 20 years ago and getting laughed at for is now very mainstream. You know,
Mm,
it was painful being ahead of my time.
mm,
Sometimes I didn't know how to necessarily language it. And
mhm,
I was very, am, not was, am very sensitive to other people's energy. So when I could pick up on their pushback within themselves, then, it would make me question because it was like having a conversation with myself instead of with other people because people weren't talking like that. So it's cool now, like to have this conversation with you is just pure bliss because it's it's just the norm.
it is honestly very wonderful. As I mentioned, came to this world awake with a lot of my talents in place, but I actively hid them.
Mm.
And part of why I did well at work and in my businesses was because I was using my claircognizance and clairaudience and my ability to heal and all of those things. But I would never tell people on the one-on-one, you know. But
Right.
I could hear exactly what they're supposed to be doing with their lives. Their businesses would show me their next step if they were stuck. But I would actively not even say anything about how I knew what I knew,
Yeah.
only because I was so like I've already seen it. I've already seen the judgment and the ridicule and all of that stuff that
There's a
is
risk
associated with it.
involved.
And in
Yeah.
many ways, it's never, yeah, and it doesn't really go away in a sense because there's a group of folks that lovingly call me the Filipino Oracle here, because I was
That's
calling a
cool.
lot of the events coming that has happened. I was calling them way back in like 2017, 2018, 2014 even. I was like, so this is going to happen. I know it's strange, but I keep seeing it every day. And but then everybody wants to esteem you as an oracle, as a helper, until they get the truth that they don't, the kind of truth they don't want to hear. It's a hard truth.
Yeah.
And so
I
there's still
know.
that sort of thing to deal with, and that's okay. But you're right, there is a sense of more of an open door with people to have these kind of dialogues, for whatever the increment that they're ready for, that they're okay with.
Yeah, I think that's where the pandemic was a blessing. You
Hmm.
know,
Oh, very
that
much so.
that's the blessing side of the pandemic. Um, and I think that's where all the anger was people. It's like you're having the best sleep of your life, the greatest afternoon nap, and someone comes along and wakes you up, and you're like, "What'd you do that for? I was fine. I was
Yes.
happy. I was cozy. I was enjoying that nap." And that's kind of what it's like when people are forced to wake up by an existential experience.
I see there's a wave of people who are still in that
I
phase.
know.
They're a bit groggy, grumpy. They need to be held a little bit. When you wake up when you're a little kid and you're not quite awake and you're kind of
Yeah.
cranky and you sit in like the crook of one of your parents' arm until you're like ready to go.
Yeah.
There's like a wave of people still in that,
I
I would
know.
say.
I know. So for someone let's say this is a spiritual journey. For
Mhm.
someone on a spiritual journey or maybe just getting started, they're curious because they're hearing the conversations like this one. Um, but they don't want to your point, they don't want to upset the apple cart of their life. They have a nice, beautiful home, a great family, they have the cars, they have the vacations, they have it all on the outside. But inside, there's an emptiness. There's things that are missing and they can't ignore it. Can you give them some sort of assurance that they don't have to give up one to get the other, that it's not an either or?
It's actually a misconception that your whole life has to fall apart for you to have a great spiritual journey and for you to come to yourself and know who you are. Because the point of it is to learn more about what you already are.
Right.
And so that is not correlated to you having to turn everything upside down and living like a monk in a cave. Where the consciousness
Right.
is past that. We've already had that phase in our consciousness where thousands of people are living in a cave just meditating. I mean,
Been there, done that.
I don't know that it was helpful. Look at us. Look at all the
No.
stuff going on. So it's more, consciousness is about being in the spirit, like a what do I call it? A living meditation, meaning you don't need to be in a cave. Your life can be an everyday meditation.
Yeah, every
So you don't
moment.
have to turn everything upside down. In fact, you're supposed to expand it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it really depends then on where you're getting your information, because there's going to be different, what do you want to call them, groups, factions, segments of these, of growth in consciousness, where everybody's, wherever you're at. I hate to, the English language is so like limiting to try to explain this stuff.
Understood.
But let's say it's a level, and when I say the word level, it's not like one's better than the other. It's not a hierarchy.
Yeah.
It's just an awareness. And I think this is for all the people out there watching that are like, well, okay, so I'm climbing some sort of ladder of acceptance and rulership over the world. It's like, no, you're not. But let's say there's experience, awareness comes in layers or levels or whatever, that depending on, you got to be really careful who's teaching you, because if they're teaching you separation, I always say, I want to leave a client or a conversation with someone with them feeling like they have more choice in their life. Like I've in my dialogue with them, they have increased choice in their life just through the conversation, just through the energy, just through an eye contact. You don't even have to talk to them, just standing in line somewhere at a store. And so I think this is the most important thing to get across to people. This is not a polarity. It's not an either or, it's an and. Because you focus on a part of your existence, and let's say it's the material world, right? And you accomplish that. And now you want to focus on your spiritual existence, self-awareness existence, soul awareness. You don't have to give up that other accomplishment to get the new one.
Nope, not at all. Because the more, look, it's like math, right? 1 plus
It's like
1
what?
is 2. It's
Math.
like math.
Got it.
1 plus 1 is 2. So the more you know about yourself, isn't it that you would create more for yourself beyond what you currently have right now? So it doesn't add up that the more you learn about yourself, that you'd have less, would it? That
Not
would be
at
1
all.
minus 1 equals 0. So
It's kind of like compounding interest, right?
yes. Yeah.
Yes.
There you
It builds
go.
upon itself.
Exactly.
It compounds.
Exactly.
And
you'll know.
Yes.
And you'll know because the things that you accomplish somehow seems easier. You don't have to resort to any sort of the usual ways that you get to what you want.
Right.
There's almost like this ease. Like you think of the person they're calling, you want to steal clothes, and it happens that whatever the obstacle just went away on its own, and you just get the notification, let's move forward. Like there's a certain ease that comes with, and these are one of the barometers that you'll know. And it's a really fun journey, actually, more than it is daunting. I think it's a grand adventure, one of the best ones I've ever been on in my life. And so when you say choice, like think of it as an adventure. Think of it as a place to have fun, because it is so much fun. There's no one else that's going to have as much fun learning about yourself than you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I have a question for you.
Yes.
So as we all evolve from where, and you can only start with where you are. So there's nothing wrong with where you are. It's just everything's a journey from there. So as each of us as individuals evolve as part of a collective, then the concept of the soul being something that reincarnates. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the reincarnation, and I think it has to be a complete equation, because in this life or in the spiritual world, we tend to channel or download the information, from the ether. Well, everything we live and believe in this life also uploads
Yes.
into the cosmic soup, and specifically into our own soul database, our own personal RAM, if you will, memory system.
Yes.
And
Operating
that
system.
then gets taken with you as you go. And part you'll never exist in this body or in this DNA or in this fingerprint ever again in another timeline. You will be in a different place. So you will pick and
Right.
choose what you take with you. And there are aspects of your soul that will never exist again once you leave this body. And should you choose to come again into another body, then you may, and it's up to you to configure what you want, in that
Right.
case. And
Right.
so it's choice. There is actually choice
There's
in that.
choice. Absolutely. Thank you for clarifying that. I believe that too. And so you could actually then choose to, I don't know how to say it, like vibrate yourself out of this realm forever.
That's me. That's what I'm after. I'm totally after that right now.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty much like this is probably my last tour of duty to this
Hmm.
planet. I think I've got it all figured out. This
Well, it's
one.
good to meet you while we were here
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
because it is my last round. I am done.
I've thought about this a lot ever since I was a little kid. I
Same
was
here.
like, yeah, really? Okay, we're kindred spirits.
Hmm.
I remember being like 3, 4, and 5 and going, what did I choose this for? It's like, oh my God, really? Because I chose a whopper of a childhood, let me tell you. It was like unbelievable. And then when I was 10, I remember I was standing on this, we lived on a farm and we had this huge hill at the base of our farmyard that was kind of like the Tor in England, in the British countryside.
Yep.
And so it was my friend. I used to play on it. It was like I would toboggan down it in the winter. I would ride my wagon down it in the summer. I would pick crocuses and shooting stars, and I would stand on it and I'd give speeches. Like I was doing then what
Love
I
it.
do now,
Love
and
that.
and all the cows in the pasture and my dog were my audience.
Love that.
And it worked. It worked. It worked really well. So I remember being up there one day when I was 10 and going, oh, God, I'm ready to go.
Hmm.
I need a new set of people around me.
Hmm. I've
I need a
definitely had
bigger
that.
environment. There's not enough people for me to talk to.
Hmm. And the
And
ones that are
then,
there, it's very silly. They're taking everything too seriously. Yeah.
and they didn't really, and I could see through everything, and they didn't want to hear about that because we were really dysfunctional. Um, and they didn't want to hear about that they were creating this dysfunction by focusing on certain things. But yeah, it's I'm with you, girl. It's like I'm good.
I have tried to exit myself a couple times, so I
I
understand.
hear you. I haven't gone that far,
Yeah.
but I yeah, I feel like I've had some real clarity over the last few months. I've been working remotely across the country and speaking at different places in different states and cities, and being on the road where you're not in a familiar space really is good for you as a human because it makes you connect to your soul. You can't connect to your favorite bed or your favorite, view out the window. You can't connect to your favorite watering hole. You have to connect to you.
Yeah.
And
That constant. Yes.
yeah, because it's always changing. And
Mhm.
the upheaval, I mean, some people just could never do that, right? But for me, it's been a tremendous way of shedding some old belief systems that have stood in the way of me connecting more deeply to my soul. And so my whole objective is just like, I know what I'm doing with the next, 40, 50 years, and I'm just after it. And that's my
Mhm.
exit strategy.
I'm the same. I pretty much got my marching orders. I stumbled upon it, and that's I can veer away from it, but life will always go. Remember, it'll be here. You need to be over here.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to circle back around and come back and work on that,
Hmm.
but probably not, right?
No, no, no.
So give those that are watching some tips on. Um, I think the first of all, let's just give it a baby step. Like, how do you first get in touch with your soul and start that process of communication?
I would say observing yourself.
Mm.
Like I have a client right now, she got into a thing about her weight and immediately wants to do something about it. And I was like, "Well, what are you trying to fix? You don't know. You don't know what's causing it. We're in our 40s. Like the thing, just going to the gym and getting all weightlifting for an hour is actually going to make you bigger. It's not going to tone you up like you think in our 20s. That worked in our 20s. You need to understand your entire functioning before you can actually pick out what you're supposed to do about it. And so I have her recording what time she wakes up, what time she falls asleep, how many times she's waking up at night. She has to record what is going in her mouth all day and what time.
Accountability, yeah.
Yes. So I know what it is about, but she has to go through the journey of seeing how she's living, just observing herself in order to go, well, does that sound like
Yeah.
what your the times that you're waking up and the time you ate this? I mean, you could probably have that earlier in the day and it won't throw off your blood sugar, so you're not up at night, which causes gain weight is actually lack of sleep.
Yeah.
Uh, so I would say the baby step is to observe. Just observe yourself.
Mhm.
That's it. Everything you're doing, everything you're thinking, don't do anything about it. You don't have to do anything about it. Just record it. Record, 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 record.
That's brilliant because you can't really shift anything you're not aware of. First you have to be
Yes.
aware of it.
Yes.
That's really good. Okay, so we've got traction and we've got a start. The start is observation. What can one do that's already on the journey to kind of get more, I don't want to say, I know I was going to say it's pick up the pace, cancel, to actually be
Move
more
it forward,
engaged.
move it
Yeah,
along.
yeah.
So the second part, the struggle is when you're doing this recording, you cannot help but judge everything you're
I
doing
know.
and why you're doing it. And so you need to observe all the voices going through here.
Lord have mercy. Isn't that the truth? No, I'm serious. But like, I catch myself and I'm like, don't talk to yourself like that. I do.
And that's the thing. Don't do this and don't fix it. Just let all the voices have their moment and sit through them, because you're gonna want to get up and like it kind of propels people to start moving around because there's a lot of energy gets brought up in these most.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. My favorite thing is like, be nice to yourself, Deborah. Be nice to
Yes.
yourself.
But that's the niceness. Those things back off in their fierceness and in the harshness they speak
Yeah.
inside your head when you just let them have their moment, because none of it's true.
No. Gosh, no.
So it just imagine like your 8 child selves, 8 versions of your child, if you have a child, or you or yourself as a child, just ranting, just all the whatever, and then they lose wind, and then they're like, all right, I'm gonna go play.
Yeah, and then everything's okay again. Hmm.
Right. And so as you go through several of those, it's gonna take a little bit, maybe a few days, but there will be a stillness that watches. You'll start to be aware that stillness, the constant that's actually watching all of it.
Yeah.
And that perception and that level of hearing is then you're like excavated into the
Mm,
layer of your soul.
that's a good word. That's a really good word. This is awesome. Great tips. So, um, how can people reach you? This has been
Oh,
fantastic.
it's very easy to reach me. I've got a site called woomanity.com. WOO, manity. It's the convergence of woo woo and humanity. It can also be found on social media, Just plug me in. I'm like all over the place. Probably a little too much, but yeah, it is what it is.
No, that's great. That's really great. And you've got some free videos on your website people can
Yes,
watch if
yes.
they want more
There's a series
information.
in there. Hmm.
Yeah, really
Articles. Yeah.
nice.
Hmm.
Really nice. Wow, this is great. And so, any last words of encouragement for the viewers?
The future is woo. Have so much fun with it. How you go through it is entirely up to you. If you want it to be fun, have fun. If you want it to be dramatic, then be dramatic. That's literally where your power is in all of this. So much of it is yours.
So true. And it's coming fast. I mean, you could see years ago that this was coming, and now it's just like warp speed. So it's whatever you're willing to allow yourself to tap into, basically. All the resources are there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow.
It's ready for you.
It's
That's it.
ready
It's
for you.
for
Are you ready?
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Allyn, thank you so much for today. This has been incredible.
Thank you. You're
Yeah.
amazing. I love the work you're doing.
Oh,
Thank you.
thanks. And you too. You're making a massive difference in humanity. And, you know, for every person that wakes up, it's exponential how many people they affect just by being, not even anything they do, just being. It's
Indeed.
infectious. Yeah. So give your website one more time.
Woomanity.com.
Woomanity.com. Definitely reach out to Allyn, everybody. She's got videos on her website that you can watch and get more information. Drop her a note, follow her on all the social media. And remember, most importantly, stay aligned, stay alert, and stay awake.